My cousins dragged my little brother into the pool. Even though he can't swim, and my mother laughed until... I don't know if I'm looking for advice or just need to scream into the void, but I can't keep this inside anymore. I feel like my entire family is built on a foundation of just let it go, and I'm the only one who sees that the foundation is cracking. I need an outside perspective because I'm starting to think I'm the crazy one. My name is Renata. My little brother Bruno is 8. And this whole nightmare is about my cousins Diego and Nico and my mom Mariela. To understand, you have to picture our family gatherings. We're in Guadalajara, and family isn't just a part of life, it's the whole show. Nearly every Sunday, my entire extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins I barely know the names of, descends on my tia Sofia's house in the suburbs. The air is always thick with the smell of carne asada on the grill and the sound of my tio's cumbia playlist blasting from a speaker. It's loud, it's chaotic, and everyone is always laughing. The centerpiece of this whole weekly circus is the backyard pool. It's this big, sparkling blue rectangle where all the family drama plays out. On the surface, it looks like a perfect family postcard. But it's not. There's this tension simmering just under all the noise and laughter, and it all revolves around my cousins. Diego is 15 and Nico is 14. They're the golden boys. They're loud, athletic, and have this cocky energy that all the adults seem to mistake for charisma. They are always the center of attention, mostly because they're always pulling some kind of prank designed to get a huge reaction. And then there's my mother. My mom is the family's self-appointed peacekeeper. Her entire life philosophy can be summed up in one sentence. No hagas una escena. Don't make a scene. To her, the appearance of harmony is infinitely more important than actual harmony. If someone's feelings get hurt, her first instinct isn't to comfort the person who's hurt, but to quiet them down so they don't make anyone else uncomfortable. And her blind spot is a mile wide when it comes to her precious nephews. Whenever I try to point out that maybe Diego and Nico aren't just joking, that they're actually being cruel, she gets this tight, pinched look on her face. She'll pull me aside, her grip on my arm just a little too firm, and whisper, "Renata, por favor, you're being overdramatic. It's not that big of a deal." Me, I'm the overdramatic one, the sensitive one, the one who can't take a joke. I'm starting to feel like those are the only things she thinks about me. This isn't a new thing. Their pranks have been escalating for years, and every single time, I'm the only one who seems to see it. I remember last Christmas, my abuela brought out this antique music box her mother had given her. It was this beautiful dark wood thing with intricate carvings. Diego and Nico decided it would be hilarious to see if it could fly, so they tied a bunch of balloons to it and let it go off the second-story balcony. Of course, it crashed onto the stone patio below and shattered into 100 pieces. My abuela's face just crumpled. And Diego and Nico? They did this whole over-the-top fake apology routine, barely holding back their laughter. The whole family just sighed and said, "Ay, niños," and moved on. When I tried to say that it wasn't funny, that they had destroyed something irreplaceable, my mom pulled me into the kitchen. Her voice was a low hiss. "Stop it, Renata. You're ruining Christmas." They said they were sorry, just let it go. It's always, just let it go. Like the time they invented a new game with one of our younger cousins, Sophia, who was maybe 6 at the time. The game was called Human Tetherball, and it involved them tying a rope to her ankle and swinging her around on the grass until she was dizzy and crying. When I ran over and untied her, my tia Sophia, mother, actually told me to stop being such a killjoy. "They're just playing. They're just boys, Renata. They're rough. You're making Sophie think something is wrong when it's not." I could feel my blood boiling. I was standing there, holding this crying little girl in my arms, and I was the one making things uncomfortable. I was the one who needed to learn how to take a joke. But the worst part, the part that keeps replaying in my head now, is that I specifically warned them about Bruno and the pool multiple times. Bruno took a swimming class last year, but he hated it. He's small for his age and not very confident in the water. He can doggy paddle, but that's about it. He's terrified of the deep end. Just a few weeks ago, I was sitting by the pool with my mom and Tia Sophia, watching Bruno splash around in the shallow steps. I said, "You know, we should really make sure Diego and Nico don't mess with him around the deep end. He's really scared of it." My mom just waved her hand, dismissively, like I was buzzing in her ear. "Don't be so overprotective," she said, not even looking at me. "He needs to learn. You're going to make him soft." Tia Sophia just laughed and added, "My boys would never hurt him. They love their little cousin." I felt this cold knot of dread in my stomach. It was like screaming into a void. I just knew they weren't listening, and that one day their jokes would go too far. I just never imagined it would be this bad. And then last Sunday happened. The day my warnings went from being overdramatic to being a prophecy I wish had never come true. It was exactly like every other Sunday. The sun was beating down, making the concrete around the pool hot enough to burn your feet. The air smelled like chlorine and grilled onions. My Tia was arguing with the speaker again because his Bluetooth wouldn't connect. It was our normal. I'd just gotten Bruno a plate of watermelon, and he was sitting on the edge of the deep end, his little legs kicking back and forth in the water, splashing happily. He had his bright blue goggles pushed up on his forehead. I was only a few feet away, sitting in a lounge chair, pretending to read a book, but really just keeping an eye on him. I saw him as my responsibility because I knew no one else was really watching. That's when I saw them, Diego and Nico. They came out of the house with that slick, predatory swagger they have, scanning the yard for their next bit of entertainment. Their eyes landed on Bruno, and they shared a look. It was a tiny, almost imperceptible smirk, but I saw it. My stomach clenched. It was the same look they had right before they sent my abuela's music box flying off the balcony. I started to get up, to call out to Bruno to come sit with me, but it happened so fast. They moved silently, creeping up behind him like a pair of sharks. One moment, Bruno was humming to himself, kicking his feet, and the next, they each had one of his arms in a vice grip. I heard Bruno let out a surprised little yelp. They were laughing, a deep, ugly, mocking laugh. "Time to learn how to swim, Primo!" Diego yelled, and with a coordinated, brutal yank, they flung him into the middle of the deep end. The splash was huge, but the silence that followed was deafening to me. For a second, he just disappeared under the blue water. Then he came up, sputtering, his face a mask of pure terror. His arms were windmilling, slapping uselessly at the water. His mouth was open in a silent scream as he gasped for air, only to get a mouthful of water. His goggles had slipped down over his eyes, crooked and useless. He was panicking. He wasn't playing. He was drowning. My little brother was drowning right in front of me. Every muscle in my body screamed to jump in, but I was frozen for a split second, my eyes darting around for an adult, for my mom. I found her standing by the patio table with a few of my aunts. And what I saw, what I heard, will be burned into my brain for the rest of my life. She was laughing. It wasn't a nervous laugh. It wasn't a, "oh, those crazy kids" chuckle. It was a full, genuine, entertained laugh. Her head was thrown back, a smile on her face as she gestured toward the pool with the wine glass in her hand. I heard her say it, clear as day over the music and the chaos. She turned to my Tia Clara and said, "Míralos, boys will be boys." The sound of her laughter hit me harder than a physical blow. It echoed in my ears, drowning out the sound of my brother choking on water. While Bruno was fighting for his life, his face contorted in fear, my mother was enjoying the show. She saw his terror and found it amusing. In that single horrifying moment, something inside me shattered. The last thread of hope that she would ever protect us, that she would ever choose us over keeping the peace, just snapped. She wasn't just ignoring the danger, she was part of the audience. That sound, my mother's laugh, just sliced through the noise of the party and went straight into my bones. The world went into slow motion. I could see the individual droplets of water flying from Bruno's flailing hands. I could see the smug, triumphant look on Diego's face. And I could hear that laugh, echoing over and over in my head. It was the only thing I could hear. I didn't even think. It wasn't a decision. My body just moved. 1 second I was on the lounge chair. The next I was launching myself toward the water. I hit the pool with a heavy, awkward splash, the shock of the cold a jolt to my system. My jeans and t-shirt instantly became a lead weight, trying to pull me down. The water filled my ears, finally silencing my mother's voice. It was only a few feet, but it felt like swimming across an ocean. Bruno was right there, his eyes wide with a terror I'd never seen before, his little mouth opening and closing like a fish. He wasn't even making noise anymore, just a desperate, silent struggle. I grabbed the back of his shirt and hooked my arm under, his chest pulling his head above the surface. He immediately latched onto me, his small hands digging into my arms with a strength I didn't know he had. His whole body was trembling, racked with huge, gut-wrenching coughs that brought up water and spit. I kicked my way to the side, my wet jeans dragging against my legs, and hauled him onto the concrete. He collapsed onto the ground, a shivering, sobbing heap, clinging to my wet t-shirt. He was trying to cry, but he was still coughing too hard, each gasp for air a ragged, painful sound. I just held him, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I thought it would break through. And then, once I knew he could breathe, once I knew he was safe, the shock evaporated. It was replaced by a rage so hot and so pure it felt like it was boiling the pool water off my skin. I left Bruno curled up by the edge and slowly, deliberately stood up. My wet clothes dripped a puddle around my feet. I turned to face my cousins. Diego and Nico were still, standing there, a few feet away, their laughter finally gone, replaced by a sort of wary curiosity. They weren't sorry. They were just waiting to see what would happen next, like this was all part of the show. I opened my mouth. I was going to scream. I was going to tear them apart with my words, unleash every ounce of fury I had for every prank, every single time they'd been cruel and gotten away with it. I was going to make them understand what they had just done. But then my eyes found my mother's. She was standing there, her wine glass still in her hand, but her smile was gone. Her face was a hard, cold mask. She met my gaze, and with a barely perceptible movement, she shook her head. Her lips were pressed into a thin, tight line. It wasn't a look of concern for Bruno. It wasn't a look of anger at her nephews. It was a warning. It was a command aimed directly at me. Don't you dare. Don't you dare start. Don't you dare ruin this party. Don't you dare make a scene. The rage in my chest turned to ice. A wave of humiliation so intense it made me feel dizzy washed over me. Here I was, soaking wet, my little brother choking and crying at my feet, and I was still the one on the verge of doing something wrong. The entire party had gone quiet. Every single aunt, uncle, and cousin was staring at me, at the mess I was making. I was the disruption. I was the problem. In that moment, I felt so utterly, completely alone, torn between the primal need to protect my brother and a lifetime of conditioning that screamed at me to just shut up and let it go. I didn't even look back at her. I just scooped Bruno up into my arms. He felt so small and cold, and walked straight into my aunt's house, leaving a trail of chlorinated water on her pristine tile floors. I could hear my mother's voice behind me, sharp and annoyed. "Renata, where are you going? Stop being so dramatic. He's fine." He wasn't fine. I could feel him trembling against my chest, his little hiccups the only sound he was making. I locked us in the guest bathroom and stripped off his wet clothes, wrapping him in the biggest, fluffiest towel I could find. As I was drying his hair, I heard the music outside kick back on. The low thud of the bass started up again, followed by a burst of laughter from the patio. The party was continuing. My brother almost drowned, and they just turned the music back up. I felt a profound, bottomless emptiness open up inside me. I managed to find some of my youngest cousins, clothes for Bruno to wear, and drove us home without saying a word to anyone. My mom stayed at the party, probably to smooth things over and apologize for my scene. The whole car ride was silent, except for Bruno's quiet sniffles from the back seat. Later that night, long after the sun had gone down, I was helping him get ready for bed. He was quiet, withdrawn, not his usual chatty self. I was pulling the sleeve of his dinosaur pajamas down over his arm when I saw them. Under the soft glow of his rocket ship nightlight, on his thin little biceps, were two sets of dark, ugly bruises. They were the perfect, unmistakable shape of fingerprints. A thumb on one side, 4 fingers on the other, where Diego and Nico had gripped him before throwing him in. My breath caught in my throat. It was one thing to know it happened, but to see the physical proof branded on his skin, it made me sick. I gently traced the outline of one of the bruises with my finger. "Did this hurt, mi amor?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. He just nodded, not looking at me. He stared down at his blankets, picking at a loose thread. There was a long silence, and then he whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. He held me down. My blood ran cold. "What did you say, Bruno?" He finally looked up at me, his big brown eyes swimming with tears he was trying so hard to hold back. His voice was a tiny, shaking thread. "When I was under the water, I tried to come up, but Diego..." He put his hand on my head, just for a second. He was laughing. He said it was a joke. That was it. That was the moment. Any lingering fear I had of being overdramatic, any shred of concern I had for making a scene, it all just evaporated. It was burned away by a new feeling, a cold, hard certainty that settled deep in my bones. This wasn't a prank gone wrong. This wasn't boys being boys. They had tried to drown my brother, and my mother had laughed. The part of me that had spent my entire life trying to be quiet and keep the peace died right there in that bedroom. If no one else in this family was going to protect him, I would. A simple confrontation would be useless. I could already hear their denials, their fake apologies. I could already see my mother's disappointed face as she told me to let it go, that I was tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. No. They weren't going to get away with it this time. I needed proof they couldn't deny. I needed witnesses they couldn't dismiss. I needed to burn their whole "it's just a joke" defense to the ground, right in front of everyone. I sat there on the edge of his bed until he fell asleep, and a plan began to form in my mind. It was cold and methodical and probably a little bit crazy. The next day, I went into the family group chat. My fingers felt steady as I typed. "Hey everyone, I was thinking for the next get-together, why don't we do something different? My friend's parents manage the clubhouse in their neighborhood, and she said we can use the party room and pool for free next Saturday. My treat." The replies came flooding in immediately. Of course they loved the idea. A new venue, a bigger pool. I smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone setting a trap. Of course, setting the trap was the easy part. Living in the silence before it snapped shut was torture. The week leading up to the clubhouse party was thick with a new kind of tension. My tia Sofia, Diego, and Nico's mom called me. Her voice was sickly sweet. "Renata, mija, it's so generous of you to arrange all this," she said. "I just hope you're not planning any surprises. The boys felt so terrible about what happened with Bruno, and they just want a nice, normal family day." It was a warning shot, clear as day. The whole family knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. When Saturday arrived, the atmosphere at the clubhouse was completely wrong. It was sterile and impersonal, nothing like the chaotic warmth of my aunt's backyard. The air smelled of clean tile and too much air conditioning instead of charcoal and sunscreen. And my cousins? They were unrecognizable. Diego and Nico were acting like perfect angels. They helped my abuela find a comfortable chair in the shade. They offered to get drinks for all the aunts. I even saw Nico patiently showing one of the little cousins how to do a cannonball without splashing everyone. They were polite, charming, and attentive. They were playing their parts perfectly, and it was making my skin crawl. My mom was a wreck. She spent the first hour flitting around, making forced, cheerful conversation, but her eyes kept darting back to me. Every time I even looked toward the pool, she'd tense up. When the lifeguard I'd hired walked into the party room, her facade finally cracked. He was a young guy, maybe 20, in an official-looking red polo shirt. I'd told everyone the clubhouse was offering a free water safety demo for residents, A lie that had sounded plausible when I typed it, but felt flimsy and stupid in person. My mother cornered me by the snack table. Her smile was gone, replaced by a look of pure mortification. "Renata, what is this?" she hissed, her voice low and furious so no one else could hear. "What did you do? A lifeguard? Are you insane? You are embarrassing this entire family in front of everyone. People are staring." I looked around and she was right. My aunts were whispering behind their hands. My Tio was frowning at the lifeguard like he was a cop showing up to shut down the party. And Diego and Nico were standing over by the pool entrance, watching me with identical, unreadable expressions. They looked like the victims now. They looked like two sweet boys who were being targeted by their crazy, vindictive cousin. And for the first time, I started to wonder if they were right. A cold, heavy pit formed in my stomach. I watched as Diego walked over to Bruno, who was sitting by himself, and offered him a can of soda. He said something that made Bruno smile a tiny, hesitant smile. My perfect, undeniable proof, the bruises, had faded over the week to faint yellow-green blotches that could have come from anywhere. The memory of my mother's laugh started to feel fuzzy, distorted. Had I imagined the malice in it? Was I just so used to seeing the worst in them that I had twisted a thoughtless accident into some kind of malicious plot? All their old words started swirling in my head, overdramatic, making a scene. Ruining it for everyone. My whole grand plan suddenly felt childish and cruel. I was about to publicly humiliate two teenage boys and my own mother based on the words of a terrified 8-year-old and my own biased interpretation. My mom looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Please, Renata," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Whatever you're planning, just stop. Let's just have one nice day." I felt my resolve crumbling. I looked at my family, all of them watching me with a mixture of pity and annoyance. I looked at my cousins, the perfect gentlemen. I looked at my mother, who just wanted peace at any cost. And I thought maybe this is a cost too high. Maybe I was the asshole. I was about to open my mouth to tell the lifeguard there had been a mistake, to call the whole thing off and just sink back into my designated role as the family drama queen. I felt sick, wondering if this whole thing was about to backfire and prove, once and for all, that I really was the crazy one. Just as I was about to wave the white flag and surrender to my family's version of reality, a man in a polo shirt with the clubhouse logo embroidered on it walked up to me. "Excuse me, are you Renata?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, my stomach twisting. I figured he was here to kick us out for bringing in an unauthorized lifeguard. Instead, he held out his phone. "My apologies, but my assistant mentioned the situation from last week when you booked the room. I wasn't sure if it was related, but I found something in our security archives from a few months ago. I think you should see this." On the screen was a grainy, time-stamped video. It showed the same pool, but a different group of teens. And right in the center was Diego. He was laughing as he and another boy held a younger kid by the arms and legs. They swung him back and forth before launching him into the deep end. But this time, Diego didn't just watch. He pulled out his phone and filmed the kids struggling, all while providing a running, mocking commentary. The manager swiped to another screen. It was a meme page on Instagram. There was the video, mirrored and set to some stupid trending audio. The caption read, "When your friend says he can swim, LOL." Everything in me went still and quiet. All the doubt, all the guilt, it all just vanished. It was replaced by a cold, clear focus. This wasn't a one-time thing. It was a pattern. It was his hobby. I looked over at the lifeguard, who was just starting his demonstration near the party room's big screen TV. "As you can see on the diagram," he was saying, pointing to a slide showing cartoon figures, "drowning is often silent. It doesn't look like what you see in the movies." "Can I show them a real example?" I asked, my voice coming out surprisingly steady. Before anyone could object, I walked over to the TV, took the HDMI cable from the lifeguard's laptop, and plugged it into the manager's phone. The first thing that flashed on the 60-inch screen was the meme page. The video started playing on a loop. My family went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. I saw my Tia Sophia's hand fly to her mouth. Diego's face went from confused to terrified in a split second. He looked like a cornered animal. Then, I swiped, and the next image filled the screen. It was the photo I had taken in Bruno's bedroom. The close-up of his small arm, the dark purple fingerprints stark against his skin. I didn't say a word. I just let the two images, the video of a stranger, the bruises on their family, hang there in the silent room. The silence was absolute. It was a heavy, crushing weight. I saw my abuela's glasses slide down her nose as she stared, her mouth slightly open. I saw my tío slowly put down his plate of food. And I saw my mother. Her face had gone the color of chalk. Her eyes were fixed on the picture of Bruno's arm, and her whole body was trembling. The wine glass she was holding slipped from her fingers and shattered on the tile floor. No one even flinched at the sound. Diego made a break for it. He tried to bolt out of the room, but the clubhouse manager was already standing by the door, along with a security guard I hadn't even noticed before. It was over. The aftermath was a blur of quiet, frantic activity. Diego and Nico were banned from the clubhouse for life. My aunt and uncle took them home without saying a word to anyone, their faces grim masks of shame. The party just dissolved. People gathered there, things in near silence, avoiding my eyes. But my mother didn't leave. She just stood there, staring at the blank TV screen, long after I'd unplugged the phone. Then she walked over to Bruno, who was watching everything with wide, confused eyes. She knelt down in front of him, right on the wet floor next to the broken glass. And she just broke. Huge, ugly sobs tore out of her as she pulled him into her arms. "I'm sorry," she choked out over and over again. "I'm so sorry, mi amor. I should have listened. I'm so sorry." The next day, she enrolled him in private swimming lessons. She sold her favorite designer purse, the one she was so proud of, to pay for the whole year up front. The family group chat, once a constant stream of party plans and gossip, is now silent, punctuated only by the occasional water safety article sent by my tia. Things are definitely safer for Bruno. They've changed, but I'm the one who blew it all up. I humiliated my cousins, yes, but I also humiliated my own mother in front of our entire family. I took our private ugly secret and projected it onto a giant screen. I see the way she looks at me now. It's not angry. It's broken. Like I shattered her world along with that wine glass. I did what I had to do to protect my brother, I know that. But I can't shake the feeling that maybe I became the monster to fight the monsters. So, Reddit, Aita, was there another way? Or was this the only way they would have ever listened?